Then I guess you moved from eBay to
Maybe
Amazon.
Etsy. No, I never worked at
Etsy.
eBay. Yeah,
Etsy. Sorry, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I was just curious, man, like how kind of like how you broke into like Amazon. I know that, uh, at least for a lot of like the tech companies, it's like, you got to have some kind of tech company on your resume in order to get hired by another tech company. But like,
Right.
how do you the first one, right? So, like, did you do like a referral? And yeah, so that was the big
Good
curiosity.
question. Okay, yeah. With Amazon, so really they reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
They just reached out on LinkedIn, but I had interviewed with them in the past. Like when I
Okay.
first graduated from Brooklyn College,
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed with them for an internship. I didn't do too well on it. And then I ended up working at Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first full-time gig outside of college. And then I was there for 2.7 years. And then at some point at Etsy, I think like in my last year, I had
Mm-hmm.
interviewed like around the beginning of the year, like January, February time.
Yeah.
And I didn't do too well on that one. And then towards the end of the year, a different recruiter reached back out to me. And then at that time, I was like, in the interview process, I was already doing a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
So I passed it that third time around.
Oh, that's dope, man. Like, so yeah, so it was probably like a coding interview to some extent, right? There was like probably coding and also some like BEI stuff as well.
Yeah, it was mainly it was okay, so the process for me at least was the first stage for, and this is for most tech companies, it's a coding test
Mm-hmm.
where they send you like a, what is it, like a hacker rank, or I don't know what platform Amazon is using right now, but something like that, where you get like, coding problem, something like leak code, if you've used leak code before,
Mm-hmm.
and you get one of those code problems, you solve it, and if it's like, runs well enough, then they invite you to the next round. The next round is like a technical screening. So
Yeah.
you're on a one-on-one call with an engineer, like myself, and that they'd ask you, and well, with Amazon it's a little bit different, where they spend a little bit more time focused on the behavioral portion. Like they'll ask about what is it, their leadership principles.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 15 to 20 minutes on that, and then they'll ask you a coding question similar to the previous round, but it's with a real person, and there's all the nuances of that in the technical interview. And then
Okay.
if you do well on that, then it's the final round, where it's like, I think 4 or 5 technical interview, quasi technical leadership interviews, where
Yeah.
each interview, it's they ask you about some leadership principles,
Yeah.
and then they ask you a technical interview question.
Oh,
Since I was interviewing for SDE2, they also
mhm.
asked me a system design question as one of the interviews. But
Okay.
yeah, I know you were trying to say something, so
No,
yeah, I'll
no,
stop
no.
right there.
Trying to just trying to understand. I guess it's like a little bit different for I guess like the roles that I was looking at because if you don't remember, like at Con Ed, I was equipment engineer, so I worked with a lot of the electric power equipment, reliability, and that kind of things. So I was looking to get into like something more like program management,
Okay.
data center hardware reliability. I think
Okay.
that's I got a really big skill set in that area,
Like more on
but
the IT side.
more in like the hardware reliability side. So
Okay.
there are a few roles that I looked at where they look at like, like so there was one that I applied to was like data center engineering operations manager.
Okay.
You're acting as a safety ambassador for the team, your management of the team data center engineering operation engineers, managing, KPIs, operational KPIs, your SME for all the mechanical, electrical, and control system problems. So like
Okay.
those, it's not heavily, it's so there's not a lot of heavy coding. I assume that you have to understand some, but it's more focused on like the reliability of the equipment. So I'm
Right.
just trying, but it's like trying to get your foot in the door. You know what I mean? It's like how
Right.
to, so I've been trying to reach out to as many people as I know that are in Amazon just to try to understand like how they they're able to get in. It seems like, you know, one thing is referral, the other one is like having a recruiter actually reach out to you. That hasn't
Right.
happened yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really just trying to kind of collect all that, while at the same time, I would think it's like optimizing your resume to make sure that, it reflects
Yeah.
these things that you're trying. So I've been working with a resume
That's
writer.
huge.
working with, and just like trying to network as well, man. So just really curious about just how everyone's path, man. It's because it's difficult, man, especially now with the different staffing changes. So it's
Right.
like trying to understand,
That you said staffing changes at Con Edison?
well, no, I think with a lot of these tech firms, right? From what I understand, they're reducing like hiring coming up next year. I think like Google is looking to reduce their headcount by like 20%. I think it's a similar thing at Amazon. I know at
Reducing their headcount? I haven't heard that, to be
yeah,
honest.
I read this
That's
article, man.
big.
Yeah, they said they were trying to reduce their headcount because they were trying to make they were concerned about a lot of folks that are I think where they get the stock where the stock they get their stock vesting and then just pretty much coast for the rest of the time while they're there. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
very similar to like if you watch Silicon Valley, you remember
Yeah.
the
I haven't
guy
watched it, but
yeah, so
I
there's one
yeah.
kid that got a job at Google with no qualifications because they were trying to compete with another company. So the equivalent of Google hired him, and basically, the guy was making like a seven-figure income. Wasn't really doing anything. He was there with a bunch of other employees. So, but it was
Yeah.
just it's like a fictional show. But yeah, I just read an article about that. So I'm just trying to really just understand like the best practices and trying to get into tech because I know you have a much better salary, but at the same time, you also it's a really there's a lot of leverage in terms of like your future career earning potential. Especially coming outside of and like especially if you're in tech, you're starting probably where like a senior engineer would start at like a traditional company. So there's a big difference in the long term when you think about the stock options and everything. It's it really separates itself after a few years. So yeah, like yeah, that's what I'm really trying to understand. Like do you know any groups right now? Like, so there was one group I was looking into. It was called Bean Runner. Do you know anything about that group?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it was
Bean Runner.
yeah, it was. So one role I played was a senior technical program manager at Bean Runner. It was at Amazon. And
Oh, is that like an Amazon company?
it 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 is, I don't think it's an Amazon company. I think it's a group. Um, you know, but yeah, I have no idea. I was trying
But
to
but I guess yeah, I'm not sure what Bean Runner is, but I guess back on what you were saying before,
yeah.
in terms of getting into Amazon, I mean, referrals is, definitely a big one. And, I can definitely give you a referral if you send me the role and your resume, and we can
Mhm.
get that situated. If you feel like your resume is like fits the
Mhm.
role.
Yeah,
Um, but even with the referral, it's just a way to get your resume looked at by the system, whether
right.
that's an actual recruiter or um like whatever software they use to like scan the resume or whatever, look to make sure that it's appropriate for the role.
Right.
um so but that is the focus on that is with your resume. So if your resume doesn't exhibit that you have the skills to do the job and pass the interview,
Right.
then even if I give a referral, it's not going to help. So have you applied? So I guess have you applied to roles at Amazon and haven't had any success?
I applied to a bunch of roles last year, and I haven't had any success. Most recently, these last few roles that I've applied to, back from I think the first role I applied to was August 14th. It still says that the application is submitted. I haven't seen any change in the status,
Okay.
um, and so I haven't
So
really heard anything back about those roles just yet.
right. So
Mhm.
usually and you've applied to other companies as well in similar roles and haven't had success with that as well, or
Right,
is it
right.
just with Amazon?
No, other companies, other tech companies as well. So that's why I had
Right.
to, when I haven't been getting any success, so I said, okay, the only thing that could be affecting this would have to be the resume, right? It could be the
Yeah.
resume and also probably, my method of either getting referrals or just my general method of like initially finding these roles. So that's
Yeah.
what I worked with a resume writer with on that end, but still just trying to understand the roles and how the process works on the other end.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely, your resume is where it starts. There's definitely networking stuff you can do. Like, I mean, you reaching out to me, that's, a perfect example of something. that I might do, that I actually used to do when I was trying to look for a job. Like I would reach out to, I was reaching out to people on Netflix, Google, and this and that. So I think what you're doing right now is a part of it, reaching out to people in your network. But your resume is definitely huge. So
Mhm.
if you're applying to Amazon is, from what I remember, when
Mhm.
I was applying, they're pretty communicative. So if
Okay.
they're not reaching back out to you, then it means that they just don't see a match at the time. They still
Mhm.
might, they have you in the system, so they still might reach out to you in the future, but
Mhm.
they're not seeing the skills on your resume. So there may be something with that. I have never used a resume writer, but
Mhm.
so I can't really speak to the benefit of it. But
Yeah. Yeah, I went to this guy.
I
He was a hiring manager at like Facebook and Google, and he didn't write my resume. He didn't actually do the writing. He actually provided feedback on the resume, and it was like a communicative process. So yeah.
got you. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's good then. So yeah, I mean, getting that, helping improving your resume, that's going to be huge. And then yeah, and reapplying. But then if you're, if you've optimized your resume, like let's say hypothetically your resume is as good as it can be right
Mhm.
now with the skill set that you have,
Yeah.
and you're still not being able to get callbacks, then maybe you just don't have the skill set needed. So there's a point in time, like when I was at Con Edison, I was I was doing IT at Con Edison, but I wasn't able to get software engineering positions. And I would apply everywhere, still wasn't able to get it. And I
Mhm.
was like, yo, what's going on? I got
Mhm.
my resume torn apart. People would, this and that. And I realized that I just don't have the skills that a lot of these tech companies want. Like I wanted to get a software engineering internship.
Yeah.
So ultimately at Con Edison, I ended up quitting.
Mhm.
And just like, I was still in school at the time, but I was like, okay, let me focus on just like my resume. And there was only so much you could do to improve the resume without skills. So I
Mhm.
started doing other things to get skills. So I would go
Yeah.
to hackathons so I could get projects. I bought this course on Udemy and started, learning it, and so I could work on different projects and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I could add to my resume. And eventually I was able to get an internship at MasterCard. So doing things to add to your resume is super super useful. And I think I even took there was a point like after Con Edison, like
Mhm.
after some resume improvement, I took before the MasterCard internship, I had done a couple other smaller internships. They
Mhm.
weren't as well paid as Con Edison. Like I remember Con Edison was like really well paid, while I was interning,
Mhm.
and I'm still in school, but I got some, probably half as much pay, but
Yeah.
I was doing like web development and like things that would pertain to the type of job that I wanted.
Yeah.
So that might be something that may be worth looking into as well, if you're not able to meet the skill set of the role that you want to be in right
Yeah.
now, maybe taking on a role that and I don't know your whole family situation or whatever, because I know if you have responsibilities, that's a little bit harder to do. But what I mean, I was still living at my parents' house at the time, so I had the opportunity to take on a a lower paying position that would help me supplement my resume so I could get into a better position
Yeah, that's a
career
good
wise.
point. That's definitely a good point. Yeah, I've been, for at the very least, because kind of similar to what you said, right? It's like if you're in, you can kind of get pigeonholed into one role if you're not careful, right? So you got
Mm-hmm.
to build those skill sets. So, just
Mm-hmm.
looking at like program management, because it's really to a certain extent, it's like project management, right? Just, you have to
Do you
be
manage people?
not at Con Ed, but I started a lot of like projects on the side, right? So I started a company, while I was at Con Ed. Basically, we teach life skills to disenfranchised students. We work with like 4 different schools, 500 students. Last year, so I actually left Con Ed and I actually moved down to Texas, where I started a school down here in Texas. So we basically, it was complete, like we started from zero with no students whatsoever. And we grew to, yearly revenue, 2.4 million, 60
Oh,
students.
nice.
And so, just, and I also started a restaurant in 2020. So it's like really trying to curate those different experiences, around which it may not everything may not be related directly to program management, but you use a similar skill set.
Right.
So yeah, I've been trying to do that. And yeah, that's what I've been trying to do, man. Just trying to,
So do you
curate.
have a job right now?
Excuse me?
Do you have a job right now?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's so just still trying to, break into fang of those companies. It's been hard, man. It's been challenging.
Right.
You know, 'cause I'm like doing all
Yeah.
these different things, and it's like still not, you know what I mean? Getting
Are
that
so
result.
with the role at Amazon, you said that you were having trouble getting into even other companies, not only Fang, but other companies with the same role, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I would before I got to Amazon, remember I was saying I was at Etsy for almost 3 years doing the exact same position. Like I was a software engineer
Mhm.
level 2 at Etsy, and they were gonna make me a senior. And so I was already performing in the role at another company. And then Amazon, because Amazon, what they, at least when recruiters reach out, they're
Mhm.
looking for people who are already doing the role that they
Mhm.
want to hire you for.
Mhm.
They're not necessary. I mean, for some roles, like, like college grad roles and very
Mhm.
entry level stuff. But for like a position that's like, a little bit higher, like L5, L6, all that stuff,
Yeah.
they're not really trying to develop people into those roles when they hire them. They're trying to get people who are already doing it at another company. And really, they're just like kind of poaching them from other companies. And
Mhm.
we're like, yo, we'll pay you more. Come do it here at Amazon. Like, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what I mean, that was my situation. Like, I was doing the job at another company, and then they got me from there. So
Mhm.
I would say first, I mean, if you want to do, what's the name of the position that you're saying?
Yeah, so the
Program
one was,
manager.
yeah, program manager.
So
You know,
yeah, I mean,
such a broad definition. It's like engineer, you know what I mean?
extreme, yes,
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, I mean, I would say like program manager, try to get a program manager position at another company, maybe not Amazon right now,
Yeah.
because if you're not able to get a program manager at, you know, another company, then
Mhm.
I feel like it's going to be very hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. You can
Mhm.
definitely still do it, but it's just
Mhm.
going to be a little bit more difficult because
I get what you're
Amazon
saying.
really is looking for, I mean, most of the top tech companies, they're looking
Mhm.
for experience, especially like you're not like an entry level person.
Right.
So, to you want to get some experience in the position that you want at maybe a smaller company, and then you can go to Amazon. And Amazon might just reach out to you. Like you wouldn't even have
Yeah.
to think about it. Like they'll just reach out to you. They'll see you on LinkedIn. I know you're active on LinkedIn, so you
Yeah.
posted, because Amazon recruiters, they're always searching. LinkedIn is like the #1 place that recruiters at Amazon, Etsy, most places look for candidates.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's like trying to make sure, like, get another role within another program manager role at a lower, at another company, and then try to go in from there.
Right.
And
Or
that's.
maybe maybe at the company you're at right now.
I mean, like, I'm a chief of staff right now at the company that I'm right now. So I would think, like, program
Chief of
manager,
staff.
like,
Right.
it's I would say, like, program manager would be one aspect of it. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like what I've been doing is like curate. I've been trying to find like experiences where, where they're super nebulous, where I can learn a lot. Where it's like it's not bound by like a specific, like, because like when I was an engineer, I'm working in this one department, I'm working for this one KPI, and you're working on this one thing. Whereas, when you kind of go into something a little bit more broad based, you can kind of think about a company in terms of like, from A to Z, revenue, from sales, marketing. And so I've been, kind of working in that area, but maybe I got to be a little bit more specific, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still trying to figure it out, trying to see
Yeah.
really triangulate and speak to a bunch of people and see kind of where the delta is, because there's got to be a delta somewhere. So it may be, to your point, yeah, it may be just like the actual job descriptions that I have just aren't like program manager X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's something. So definitely something to think about. Never thought
Right.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, you said you recently got your resume, you worked on your resume and all that stuff. So maybe it's at a point now that you could get an interview.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked at your resume. You know, I didn't know if you planning on doing a resume review in this session or
No, no, I was really
okay.
just touching base with you, man, just to
Okay,
understand
okay.
your experience at Amazon. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So do you any other questions for me?
yeah. No,
All right. I
that
don't know if I answered everything because
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely, man. I,
Okay.
I appreciate it. You definitely answered the question that I had as far as how what your experience was,
Yeah.
for the company. You gave me some good advice. So I appreciate that. Yeah,
No
I
problem.
would I'll shoot you over the the job description role, and my once I got some more edits that I got to put on my resume, and let me know what you think, if you think they align up with what the description is, and then I guess we can take it from there.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah.
congrats on, like,